Hello and welcome back to the channel, and today I have a bit of a different video for you all. Today I'm joined by Lima because we wanted to discuss an interesting topic, and that being, why are dinosaurs no longer enough for really any sort of movie, it seems, but focusing primarily on the Jurassic franchise. Obviously, that's been spawned by all the debate and conversation around the mutant from Rebirth, and I just thought it would be an interesting topic to discuss. And Lima is here because A, he's a long-term friend of the channel, but B, he's also my sort of monster movie representation here because he's the Godzilla fan, and I think Pacific Rim as well. I think not really Pacific Rim, but definitely a Godzilla fan. So
specifically 2014.
That was the first one, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, we're here to discuss this question, but I think a good starting point might be, when did dinosaurs become a thing in cinema to start with? So Lima, do you want to hazard a guess to when dinosaurs first came onto film?
Earliest representation I remember is that one, I think it was like the 1910s or 1930s, between that time, of that one, it was the Diplodocus that was getting fed pumpkins. That's the first one that I remember.
Yeah, so I did some research. Basically, dinosaurs have been in films since dinosaurs became a thing. From the turn of like the 20th century, they were in movies, but the first generally considered dinosaur movie, it was made in 1915. Gertie the Dinosaur.
Gertie, that's the one.
Was the first proper dinosaur film, and then obviously dinosaurs have shown up in films throughout the next 100 years or so, but it was really the 1990s where they all took off for obvious reasons. Like if you look at dinosaurs showing up in film, it's like a couple of films throughout a decade, and then after you get Jurassic Park, it's films all of the time. Something to note though, in doing my research, is that Wikipedia counts Godzilla and King Kong films as dinosaur films. Now, I have a problem with that, but that's a different conversation. Personally, I don't count Godzilla and King Kong as a dinosaur movie. King Kong and Godzilla are the primary antagonist monsters, but yeah, that's something different. So dinosaurs have been present in film for a long time. And this is where we get to the question, which I think it's fair to say was kind of started with Jurassic World and has only gotten worse, I would say. So perhaps let's start with, what did we make of the Indominus Rex at the start?
At the start? I mean, at the start everyone was hyped. We were getting like a new scary hybrid, right? Meant to be the new big bad. At the time, we had 14 years since Jurassic Park 3. So we were just excited to get into the Jurassic, let alone a new quote-unquote dinosaur. So I think for about maybe 3 years until Fallen Kingdom came out, we were very much in a honeymoon phase with the Indom. And now, ever since, we're just sick of it because it's just been hybrid after hybrid. So we've had the Indoraptor, Scorpius, you name it. We've just had too many, in my opinion.
I think not all of us are sick of it. There's definitely a part of the community that's very much pro-hybrid. But yeah, I when I first learned of the Indominus being this made-up dinosaur for the film, I wasn't particularly happy with that particular idea, primarily because there are so many dinosaurs that, to me, I don't feel that you need an invented one. You know, as we get into why dinosaurs might not be enough, I think there's a number of features on the Indominus Rex that actually I think are demonstrative of why Universal have required these invented movie monsters as opposed to real dinosaurs. The Indoraptor was a long way off even like the Indominus Rex. Arguably, it is more dinosaur than the Indominus Raptor and Scorpius Rex ever were. The Indoraptor was a straight up monster, you know, just a bland movie monster. And I suppose it's important to say that, like, I don't mind movie monsters at all. Like, the Xenomorph is one of my favorite creatures of all time. to show up in movies, you know. I think my problem specifically is this twisting of a franchise that's supposed to be about dinosaurs into it becoming seemingly a franchise about movie monsters. And Rebirth seems to be doubling down with this, with not just a big mutant, which we'll talk about more in a minute, but other mutations beyond just this rancor thing. Every animal is basically gonna be a mutant of some description, and I think that's problematic.
Yeah. It raises the question of how many of these dinosaurs will be, because obviously with Dominion we had those 100% genomes, quote unquote. We don't know if Dodgson was lying or whatever the hell. Yeah, it just begs the question, like, how different are they going to be? Obviously, we had that funny mix-up with the articles to say that the Rex was going to breathe fire, but obviously that's not going to be the case.
Well, interestingly enough, in regards to that T-Rex breathing fire thing, funnily enough, the Mattel toy of the T-Rex has a glow-up mouth.
Oh.
Yes, Evo pointed it out to us in Steam chat earlier on. Just like, you know, the Mattel Rex toy, it has a glow-up mouth. It has like lights in it and it glows red.
I have not seen that yet.
Highly suspicious.
Unless it's, I don't know, because obviously we're on the subject of mutations, it could lead towards bioluminescence of some sort. I'm really hoping it's that of all things.
Maybe.
Because that would seem a bit, I mean, it is, I've never seen bioluminescence in an animal's mouth. I mean, that's the most plausible, realistic thing, which Gareth Edwards wants to push. From what he said, he wants this movie to be quite realistic in its scientific attributes, although this is Jurassic World. But I guess he wants to kind of make it a bit more believable in that sense. So I guess bioluminescence for me would be the only thing that would make sense for that. We've seen that in Jurassic before with Camp Cretaceous.
True.
And it worked well there, in my opinion.
Let's get to the question now. We've given us some background here. Why might dinosaurs no longer be sufficient? I've got like 4 different points here on my list.
I'm kind of against that point, though. I don't really have any points for that.
Okay, so the idea is not that we're like agreeing or disagreeing. The idea is like trying to figure out why, in Universal's case, is a dinosaur not enough anymore. We have to have an invented monster. So I think the first thing is that I feel that not just with Jurassic, but movies over the last 25 years have suffered from a degree of, I call it Marvelization, but I think it's probably unfair to blame Marvel for it. But I do feel that movies recently have become so much more about in-your-face, over-the-top action as opposed to something like the original Jurassic Park. So I can't see something like Jurassic Park being made today if it hadn't been made in the 90s. I don't think Jurassic Park would be the same movie if it was made now, because the style of the slow burn style and the limited use of the dinosaurs and the characterization in it is just something you don't seem to see in modern films. And I think that's why Universal have to rely on monsters in Jurassic, because if you look at the Indominus Rex, it had all these superpowers of being able to change its skin color and plan traps, and the Indominus Raptor being able to like be an assassin and whatever mutant powers the Rancor is going to have in Rebirth. It's all stuff that is necessary for them to have in the film that they can't just give to a dinosaur, because if you gave it to a dinosaur, it wouldn't make sense. At least, you know, you can't imagine a normal dinosaur behaving in the way that an Indoraptor or the Scorpius Rex or the Indominus Rex does. So you have to create a monster in order to satisfy that, because you want your movie to be full of all these action beats and action plots. That's basically my first point, is that the films are being written in a way that you can't just have a normal animal. You have to invent a monster to satisfy the writing, essentially.
Which kind of brings me on to a point that I was thinking of, is that all of the Jurassic movies have a similar structure. They have 1 or 2 big bads in every movie. There's never, I mean, the human characters in Jurassic Park and The Lost World are quite strong. in my opinion. They're very strong characters.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of how they're written. But Jurassic World, it just feels like a copy and paste. We've got two kids, whoop-de-doo again, and we've got Claire, who's obviously acting as the Laura Dern of the story, and Chris Pratt, who's acting as the what's his name? How have I forgotten his name? Dr. Grant, although he's not a paleontologist. So it's just every film feels like it has that same structure. To where they go to the island or whichever island they're going to. They it's all, as Ian said, ooh wow, that's how it always starts. There's running and screaming. Every film since then has felt like that, apart from maybe Dominion, because Dominion tried to stray a bit too far from what Jurassic is. But that's besides the point. I feel like they just need to change the structure of each Jurassic from this point going forward to something a bit more dynamic, because even in the Rebirth trailer, I kept getting flashbacks to the Fallen Kingdom trailer, because they're hiring people to go to an island. Yeah. And it keeps building up to this betrayal arc that's going on.
Yeah, I said to you when I first saw the trailer, it's just basically Jurassic Park 3 again.
Yeah, it's like Jurassic Park 3 and Fallen Kingdom mixed together, it feels like. And it's just, we need we need something else. We can't just have rehashes of previous stories.
So you think they resort to using an invented monster as opposed to a genuine dinosaur because they need something to make the movie stand out?
Yeah, because look at Dominion, for example. Like, we got locusts for some reason, even though we had plenty of room for, too many cattle being killed from overhunting from Jurassic Park 3 raptors, or sauna raptors, more accurately. Instead, we got Cretaceous period bugs that we've never seen before and has never been mentioned before. We've had so much build-up with these dinosaurs, like the Velociraptors, and the potential for, other raptors like Utah Raptor or an actual Deinonychus, and yet they just weren't executed. I don't know if that's the writer's fault or Universal's fault or, dare I say, Colin's fault.
That's interesting, because that brings me on to a point I was going to make, in that it seems that writers can't make dinosaurs scary anymore. Especially if you look at Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom and Dominion. Like, the best part of Dominion, and the only part that got anywhere near to Jurassic Park's overall great success, was the scene with the Therizinosaurus, because it was actually tense, actually sort of thrilling, and it felt close to what the originals had always been. That was but the rest of the film, every animal was literally used as just, an action point. Chase the cast here, chase the cast there, destroy the cast aircraft, and then fuck off for the rest of the film. Oh, these purebred, thoroughbred, killer Atrociraptor assassin dinosaurs are completely incapable of chasing down a woman running across rooftops, to the point where the CGI has to knock the animal back several times in order to achieve the required spectacle. It seems like writers don't know how to make dinosaurs scary. But then again, I would argue that they don't seem to know how to make anything scary. The Indominus Rex was never scary, nor was the Indoraptor, really, at any point scary. And I don't really... the mutant in Rebirth, I don't find it scary, I find it pitiful, because it's just a xenomorph rancor. I feel kind of sorry for it. It's like, why am I alive?
Yeah, exactly. I can see that being the kind of point that they're trying to make with it in the actual movie, not the trailers themselves, like the promotional material. I can kind of see them going down the route of like an empathetic or sympathetic route for that animal to finalize its arc, I suppose. At the beginning, obviously, you're going to be like, what the hell is that? That's scary, depending on how... Because another thing that really... Because it's not just the writers that do that, it's especially the directing. Because you could write a really terrifying scene, but then it gets absolutely butchered by the directing.
That's true.
Because we all know Colin, he likes to make his movies very colourful, sometimes just one-tone colours, blue, Jurassic World, and obviously the tone is very colourful as well, in terms of the movie's mood. So they could have written a lot of scary scenes with the Indominus, but they just never end up really executing that well because Colin directed it. Like, if someone like Gareth, who's directing Rebirth, directed it, it may have been completely different, because we know that Gareth can make semi-scary or tense scenes from Godzilla 2014. My main point being that train track scene with the Muto, because it's a very simple scene, just a Muto or a kaiju walking up to a train track and looking at the soldiers that are laying on top of it from underneath. Yet he makes it so effective with how he directs it, the sound design, and the framing. So a lot of it does come down to directing as well.
Yeah, I would agree. It's difficult for someone who isn't, in the movie making process. Like, we as consumers, we kind of assume that it's one overall process and everyone's pulling together and everyone knows what each other are doing. But in reality, it's more, the writers will write something, but it's very much up to the director, how it's filmed, and then it's very much up to the editor, how it is then edited, with the director obviously part of that process as well. And then there's the overall impact of, well, the company might watch the film and then be like, we want to make X and X changes or rewrites afterwards. Like, obviously, to say it is entirely the writer's fault might be unfair to the writers.
It's a collective.
Especially when we look at the Indominus Rex, it did feel like the action scenes were written first, and then they invented an animal and its abilities in order to make the scenes. Like, wouldn't it be cool if this animal, which we don't know what it's going to be yet, but could make itself camouflage? Or wouldn't it be cool if it laid a trap for the people by tearing out its own tracker? Wouldn't it be cool if it hid from thermal imaging? And then they invented a monster with all of these abilities, and then they had to put a 5-minute long scene in the movie of exposition to explain why this monster had all these abilities. And it almost I kind of think if that exposition scene had not been present in the film, it would have been better. That exposition scene just literally felt like them going, oh, we need to explain why our monster has all these superpowers. Let's explain the superpowers.
As the movies went on as well.
It does feel like these things are written without the animal being considered first. Again, I felt that way a lot with Dominion. Like, oh, we need a way of getting our characters out of their aircraft. Well, let's just have, like, a giant pterosaur attack them. It's like, well, why doesn't the pterosaur attack things normally? Oh, let's just invent this air deterrence force field system that makes sure they don't attack them. Like, which you can turn off with just one button in the control tower. Because modern Jurassic movies have absolutely no conception of what risk assessments are, and everything only has one point of failure, which is what you want when you're surrounded by things that can kill you. We'll just have a single button, and it makes all of the pterosaurs instantly go crazy and want to attack everything around them.
Yeah, it's another thing that makes these dinosaurs that we have in Jurassic now not scary. It's just their characteristics. They're always trying to kill something, which makes them not scary. What makes something scary is unpredictability.
Yes.
That's why the Dilophosaurus scene in the original Jurassic Park was so scary, because, it was just kind of staring. It wasn't really doing anything. It was just following Nedry, seeing what he would do. And then as soon as Nedry showed a point of vulnerability by being on his back and laying down, it then sprung to attack, acting like a normal animal instead of just, in Dominion's case, creeping up on someone who's purposely crouching down to meet eye level and then attacking them. It's two completely different avenues. Like, the Rex was nowhere near as anthropomorphized as it is now in 93.
Yes, which is, I think, another point worth discussing in a second.
Yes, because I think that's another point that I wanted to make, was the characteristics, specifically with that Dilophosaurus scene.
I mean, I think it's kind of similar to what you were saying about characteristics there. Like, if you compare how the dinosaurs actually behave in the originals to the new ones, the older animals, probably because the CGI wasn't as advanced, and probably because they were relying on animatronics more, they move differently. They move slower, they have more weight to their movements, they're more deliberate. And as a result of that, it does make them feel more intelligent. Like, every action is you can see the cogs going around in the head. Every action is thought about. The T-Rex, when it attacks the tour ride, you know, it looks through the window, then sees where they are, nudges the car to figure out what's going on, then notices that there's a big glass hole in the top, and then tries to attack from the top. And when that fails, he tips the car over to try to stimulate them to escape the vehicle so he can kill them. Or she can kill them, I should rather say. If you think about the T-Rex in the newer films, or all of the carnivorous dinosaurs in the new films, they just charge at everything instantly. Like, there's no attempt to hunt. There's no attempt to... Like, maybe the Pyroraptor in Dominion demonstrates that a little bit by diving into the water to try to attack from beneath it, even though that whole scene is complete hokum, but whatever. That's the only time I really felt like in Dominion the animals were kind of trying to be intelligent predators.
Allo and Carno, you can kind of argue, I guess, because, you know, they've just escaped a cage and they're just wandering about, but I don't see enough of that really. But again, like you said about the weightiness and, you know, thought process behind what the actual dinosaur's doing. Again, a lot of that actually, believe it or not, comes down to the filmmaking and how it's changed over the years. Because each CGI shot in the original Jurassic Park and the earlier Jurassic Parks were all very detailed in how they were planned out in pre-production. So they knew exactly what they were going to frame. They knew exactly how the animal was going to move and when it was going to move at what time. Whereas now, you just kind of film the shot, you storyboard it within production, and then you fill in the blanks in post-production. Just, you know, match up the movements to the camera. Obviously, it's a bit more intricate than that, but it's not as artistic as it once was. The directors, they're nowhere near as artistic as they once were in that sense. So I believe that as a big factor in why the dinosaurs nowadays just don't have enough thought process of what they're doing, because it especially feels like every action that they do is based on what the humans are doing. Like the Atrociraptors, they are told to chase Claire and Owen. The Indoraptor is told to chase Maisie and, you know, other people as well. Or they could argue against the Indoraptor. The Indominus, it's let out the cage on purpose for some reason. And the, you know, Blue and the squad follow Owen. There's no real hunting in the new movies at all. Only one that you can really say is Rexy with her scavenging.
What you're saying there is that it's not that dinosaurs are no longer enough and we have to have mutant monsters. It's that actually Jurassic itself doesn't know how to use any of its animals effectively, whether they're a dinosaur or a mutant. That's an interesting point.
They don't know how to characterize their dinosaurs anymore. They don't know how to make them behave, which is why they need their human characters to do it for them. Because they're anthropomorphizing those animals to act like pets.
Yes,
dogs and cats.
Let's tackle this anthropomorphizing, because I feel this is another reason as to why we have hybrids and mutants being used, because it feels like modern Universal is trying to push this narrative that the dinosaurs are the good guys and the mutants / hybrids are the bad guys, and we want the audience to root for the dinosaurs as if they were the heroes of the story. That's definitely what they did with Rexy and Blue all the way through the original. I find it really weird that this new one's being called Jurassic World again. I feel like we've had a trilogy of Jurassic World films, and I feel like that was a trilogy on its own, and now I feel like we're getting a new set. So the fact they've got the same name puts me off. So I'm going to say the original trilogy, the reboot trilogy as the first three Jurassic
The Colin
Worlds.
arc.
The Colin arc. The Colinverse. There we go. Yeah, because I feel like those three Colinverse films, it's always Rexy is the hero, or Blue is the hero character. You can see that all the way through Jurassic World with teaming up to fight the Indo-Rex. You've had Blue saving her human friends against the Indoraptor in Fallen Kingdom, and then in Dominion you basically had a repeat of let's have Rexy fight the big bad dinosaur again, and kill them, only this time with some help from a Therizinosaurus instead of Blue. And I feel like this anthropomorphizing of them as the good guys is where they're also going wrong here. Because if you do that, then you have to have an invented monster mutant thing to be the bad guy dinosaur, don't you? I mean, let's be fair, the Giganotosaurus was only one step away from being a Godzilla ripoff. It definitely looks more kaiju than dinosaur, I would argue.
Had the dorsal plates as well. Also breathed fire in the movie. You know, normal Giganotosaurus things.
Yeah, normal Giganotosaurus things. So yeah, the anthropomorphizing, you mentioned it first. Like, what did you want to say about that?
As you mentioned, like with Blue especially, the raptors in Jurassic World, they were all anthropomorphized to some extent. Rexy has progressively gotten more anthropomorphized. In Jurassic World, she just seemed less important. There was no real impact to her being on screen. Whereas you'd think, like, it's the original Rex from Jurassic Park. Like, is that going to be what's going to spring the trap again? No. She just kind of walks out of her cage whilst everything else is happening. And Blue, they want to treat Jurassic like How to Train Your Dragon. That's what I feel like they're trying to do. And ironic enough, that's their IP as well. And it feels like a How to Train Your Dragon ripoff at this point, just with dinosaurs. And it's definitely diminished the character of the Velociraptors within the Park universe, like the Spielberg verse. In Jurassic Park, they were still quite anthropomorphized, but in the right way. Like, you obviously had those quotes from Muldoon saying they remember they never attacked the same place twice, and obviously characterizing the big one. And you can see with Spielberg's directing that is indeed true, with the first ever scene in the movie where she's attacking the gate worker and when she's stalking the kids in the kitchen. You have that close-up of her squinting and growling because she's thinking. And then The Lost World, obviously the teamwork in the long grass scene, terrifying, and kind of the family of the Jurassic Park 3 raptors. Whereas in Jurassic World, it just feels like a school. The raptors don't really respect or know each other that well. They don't feel like siblings. Velociraptors in Jurassic Park felt more like siblings to me than they did in Jurassic World.
Yeah, I don't even know why they bothered in Jurassic World to have more than Blue, because the other raptors were just useless, pointless. Yeah, just to die, basically.
They're just there for shock effect, and Chris Pratt does, just never showed emotion when they did that.
Yeah, and Blue, teaming up to fight a T-Rex. just pointless.
You gave this thing a bigger... Well, I'd expect a stronger bite force than the Rex itself, and yet it doesn't kill both the Rex and the Velociraptor at the same time.
Yeah, which is one of the problems I think that I have with them inventing these monsters. Like, they invent them and then they're useless. Like, the Indo-Rex gets killed at the end of its movie. The Indoraptor is worse than the Indo-Rex. It's completely useless. It can't even kill a child. Like, these invented movie monsters are kind of less effective than the animals that these movie monsters are replacing, which I think is even worse for me, because it's like, why didn't you just use a dinosaur here? This monster you've given all the superpowers to is a failure.
It has Therizinosaurus claws and it didn't use them once.
Yeah.
But bringing that onto Rebirth, I think from what I've seen, there's only like one quote-unquote companion dinosaur that they've revealed, and it's a small herbivore, which is fine. I mean, I might be going crazy here, but I think I've heard that.
Yeah, the Aqualops, I think.
Something like that, yeah. But with Rebirth, we don't have any returning characterized dinosaurs. We know that the Rex is obviously, wild, it's feral, because it's attacking everything that it sees. Well, if you disturb it, obviously, like the character did. And, I don't think any of the dinosaurs will be anthropomorphized as badly as they were in Collins movies, including Jaya Biona, You're Not Out the Woods. But, yeah, I don't think it'll be nearly as bad as it was in World, FK, and Dominion. Because, obviously, they're completely new dinosaurs. We have the potential for a Utah raptor now. So we may have 2 types of raptors in one movie, like we did in Dominion. But it seems like it's just a Jurassic Park 3 raptor mainly, which gives me hope because obviously those are the team working dinosaurs. They obviously won't be relying on a human, I hope. And the mutant, again, my point being that I feel like it'll be like a empathizing story, because from what we've heard so far, it's meant to be the first attempt at creating a T-Rex, or at least their first quote-unquote successful attempt. So I feel like it'll be kind of a Shin Godzilla story in that sense, to where it's just in pain, and the reason it's so angry is because it's in pain all the time, potentially. I don't know, but I don't think the characterization or anthropomorphism will be nearly as bad in Rebirth, in my opinion, because it's kind of a clean slate with the characters anyway. So whether or not they start again with that awful arc of anthropomorphizing dinosaurs again, or if they just ditch that idea completely, then we'll just have to see with Rebirth.
Since we're talking quite a bit about Godzilla, so to what extent would you say that Godzilla is the reason as to why Universal seem to be wanting to turn Jurassic into some sort of monster-verse franchise? Because obviously Godzilla in the last 10 years has kind of blown up. Arguably King Kong as well, but let's just say those monster-verse kind of movies have blown up a lot more than they ever did in the early 2000s. So to what extent do you think that's responsible, the rise of Godzilla as this suddenly really good money-making franchise now?
We've had countless Godzillas across the past decade. We've had 2014 Shin Godzilla. We've had a lot of different tones for those movies as well. 2014 was quite serious. Shin Godzilla was quite empathetic, like I mentioned with the D-Rex or Mutant. I think where it really kicked off was King of the Monsters, because that came out in 2019, a year after Fallen Kingdom. So potentially that may have had like a knock-on effect from the success of that movie, no matter my opinions on it. So that could have sparked an interest in just adding tons of different animals into Dominion, because obviously we had about, upwards of 10 different kaijus in that movie. And obviously with the success of that movie, they just wanted to make more. Anthropomorphization, I can't speak today. I think that's mainly down to How to Train Your Dragon. But for kaiju, I don't know. I don't think Godzilla would have had a major effect on it, because 2014 came out a year before Jurassic World, so it could have. But for Fallen Kingdom's case, it's not really a kaiju movie in my opinion.
So do you think it's the Marvelization pushed for action over the thriller aspects? I think so. Bigger issue?
Yeah, because obviously we had Infinity War in 2018, which everyone knew was coming. So I think it was Marvel at the time that really pushed that action-based storytelling at the time, because mid 2010s it was all Marvel, as I'm sure you can remember.
Oh yes.
So I think that definitely drove Jurassic as well to follow that same suit. Then again, hiring Chris Pratt, who also is in Marvel. So I think that definitely had an effect, more so than Godzilla in my opinion, because Godzilla at the time before or after Fallen Kingdom was entirely different to what it was before Fallen Kingdom. So I don't think Godzilla would have really taken that much of an effect, or given that much of an effect.
So the other thing that was mentioned when we were sort of talking about this briefly some months ago was the fact that dinosaurs have been too demystified now to work as a movie monster. In that, because we know so much about them now, and because we've had so many documentaries now, and because dinosaurs seem to be a lot more mainstream than they ever used to be, and the fact that if you have a monster in a movie, sort of the best monster movies, there tends to be a degree of mysticness to them. Like, you very rarely see them, or you don't know anything about them like that. I suppose that's what makes the Alien and the Predator so good in their respective movies, is that you don't know anything about them, so when they start revealing aspects of their behavior and capabilities, it makes them very much more scary. But it's the problem now that we have become so demystified to dinosaurs. We've seen them in so many films now that we are bored of them, or they can't show us anything new? Or is it just we're bored of the same ones showing up? Or is it that, we've seen dinosaurs doing so many things now that we can't show dinosaurs doing something different, so again we have to invent a xenomorph rancor or a Indominus Rex to do these things to make them different enough.
I don't think it's so much the dinosaurs themselves that we're sick of, or not so much sick of, but bored of. I think it's the way they're interpreted. You mentioned how we know a lot about them now, and how they may have behaved, how they may have looked like, where they would have lived, what kind of conditions they would have lived in. I don't think that's well interpreted in any movies at the moment. Like T-Rex's very strong bite. I don't see any examples of that in Jurassic or any other media other than Prehistoric Planet. For example, mimicking. I feel like mimicking for like troodontids of any kind, or even just velociraptors in Jurassic, would be astonishingly terrifying. Because imagine just hearing, like, just to set the scene, an expedition is sent out to save another lost expedition. They come across the camp that seems to be, about a few days old, but no one has been there for about a day or two. And then in the distance, you hear a very faint help, hello, help, wait, help. And then they go and, investigate. It gets louder, and then it just suddenly stops for a while. Like, the expedition is calling out to them, but just there's no response anymore. And then the attack happens. Not from the front, but from the side.
But that takes us back to that sort of, they don't want to make dinosaurs scary, or the dinosaur films have lost their thriller aspects.
I just think there's a lot more in, like, creative ways you could... Because obviously with dinosaurs, you can interpret many things how you'd like in a realistic way.
Yeah, I mean...
take the Isle, for example. The Isle's Dilophosaurus, obviously, inspired by Jurassic Park, has venom. When we have no, implication of whether or not they would have had venom at all. And camouflage as well with the Lost World book with Carnotaurus. Likely wasn't possible, but it's a cool feature to have. And it makes sense for that story. But there's just a lot of features of different dinosaurs that I would have loved to see explored in Jurassic, rather than just, I have teeth, fear me. Like, it's not scary in that way.
Yeah, because
the way they hunt is scary.
My buddy Nerd Guy Productions, who, is not a dinosaur fan, but he's watched all the movies with me. He watched all of Prehistoric Planet with me as well. And he was like, why don't modern Jurassic films have anything as imaginative and fun as the Carnotaurus dance from Prehistoric Planet? He loves that Carnotaurus dance scene. But why don't Jurassic films ever have these genuine sort of interesting behaviors, even shown as a sort of background scene or a minor scene? And he makes a good point. Like, so much of Jurassic now, it feels like it's just dinosaurs attacking people, and there's nothing else.
Yeah.
And all the interesting behavioral stuff seems to go to the mutant or the hybrid, because...
Even they don't use it well.
Yeah. Like, it is...
The Indominus used camouflage once.
That's it.
Yeah,
used the thermal... the ability to hide from thermal sensors once. Used its camouflage once.
Yeah.
like,
I feel like a really cool... even just a shot, right? When they're in the forest using night vision, you've got all this night vision point of views. A really good shot, I think, to commemorate the thermal regulation that the Indominus has, is to just have it standing there, staring at the character that you're in the point of view of, with the only thing being visible amongst like countless other soldiers being highlighted in yellow, red, and blue, is just a really faint green outline or faint green silhouette with white glowing eyes in the distance. Because the Indominus is just standing there, but you can't see it because it's, thermoregulating. But you can see its eyes because it has night vision. I feel like that would have been a really effective thing to have. Like there's all these ideas that they throw into these dinosaurs, but they don't use them effectively at all.
So it seems like the predominant sort of a view of us in this discussion is that the question isn't dinosaurs not being enough or mutants being necessary. It's that the writing is letting these animals down in so many different ways. The action-heavy idea of films now, the lack of thriller and horror aspects, the lack of imaginative, creative scene making is letting these creatures down. And to us, we perceive it as, oh, they just keep throwing these mutants in and misusing the dinosaurs, but that's, in reality, they're misusing everything. And they need to improve in that regard. What would you like to see from Rebirth, both from its dinosaurs, but also, you know, it has its mutant. Like, what do you want, or what would your preferred outcome be for those two groups in order to alleviate some of this problem of dinosaurs seemingly not being enough?
For the dinosaurs, obviously, as I mentioned, I would love to see a more imaginative character trait for them. Like I mentioned, like the mimicking, or, well, we have seen Venom before, but mostly mimicking in that sense, like mimicking human vocals. As for the mutant, I would much rather it be like a Shin Godzilla, to where it's, you know, it is strong, right? It's bulky, it has its strength and weight and mass, and it's, you know, scary because of that, at like a front-facing view. But when you actually think about it, that thing is likely in a lot of pain. And the reason it's lashing out is because it is in pain. And we did actually see that shot of the mutant in that cage with the person in the hazmat suit just kind of looking down, wondering what he's doing. So it doesn't seem like it's going to be like a, you're breathing, I'm going to kill you now. Yeah, I would much rather it be like a Shin Godzilla, to where the reason it's lashing out is because it's in pain and it's angry because of that, and it's easily agitated. And I'd expect it to be kind of like a, I don't know if any of you watching have played The Isle, but a hyperendocrine strain of dinosaur, to where they're very big, but they have an insatiable hunger, to where their metabolism is too fast, so they just starve to death out in the wild. So I think it needs a reason to be lashing out like that, the pain, and the dinosaurs need to act like animals, but at the same time have something imaginative within there as well, like the mimicking. That's what would draw me in, opposed to just teeth.
I mean, do you even think the question is valid? Like, are dinosaurs no longer enough, or are dinosaurs?
I don't think it's valid, no, because we've got thousands of species, we've got thousands of ideas of how they may have acted, what traits they would have had. Some more realistic than others, but there's 1,000 avenues you could go down for even just T-Rex. You could make T-Rex a very different animal in the scheme of things.
But surely Universal knows that, so...
No, not at all. I don't have any faith that they will do that, but it's what I'd like to see. You
don't think that Universal is aware of how many dinosaur species that they could choose from? That's actually a good point. Like, to what extent do the people making these films, how much do they know about the other animals that are not just T-Rex and Velociraptor and all the stuff that they've already used in the film?
Whenever they do discover a new dinosaur and learn about them, it's just add them to DLC for Jurassic World Evolution. That's what they do with it.
That does seem to be what they, to the extent that they.
And if they can't, if they can't be asked to do that, they'll just think of other hybrids, or just add feathers to the dinosaurs.
Do you think the hybrids could have ever been good?
I wouldn't say that I wouldn't say that the Indominus Rex is terrible. I wouldn't say it's good. It's very much a grey area for me, because they're dipping their toes into what is possible for Jurassic, which I respect. What I don't respect is people saying we don't want this anymore and just doing it anyway. But with hybrids as a whole, I'd rather leave it in the past. Mutants, this is what I think people get mixed up. Mutants and hybrids are completely different. Hybrids, to me, are purposely made hybrids, whereas mutants are failed experiments, which for some reason are still alive. But hybrids as a whole, I think, should be stopped. in my opinion, because they're just dinosaurs mixed together.
See, I agree with you as much as to your definitions of the differences between a hybrid and a mutant. My problem is I'm not 100% convinced that Universal are not just going to use them in exactly the same way. And to me, it doesn't matter if you're calling it a hybrid or you're calling it a mutant. I mean, it's interesting that I've seen articles that seemingly interchange the two terms. So clearly, the people writing the articles are not 100% whether this thing is a hybrid or whether this thing is a mutant. If they're being used in exactly the same way, then it doesn't matter, does it? They're basically the same, regardless of what you're calling them at that point.
Yeah. Basically, you could always pull out the argument at the reverse card saying like all of the dinosaurs are hybrids.
Well, they're not.
Who cares?
I know it's beyond the scope of this video, but let's just actually talk about that. They're not all hybrids, though. I feel like that excuse has come about by the pro-hybrid camp to try to sort of state, oh, well, it's okay to have hybrid monsters in the film because every dinosaur is a hybrid, but that's not the same. Jurassic has established that the dinosaurs, regardless of how many genetic frog DNA splicing happened, these are dinosaurs. That's how the film stated, that's what they were, that's what they were supposed to represent. These are dinosaurs, regardless of the fact they have a bit of frog DNA in them. They're also genuine, actual, real-life existing animals. The Indominus Rex is not only invented and not only has frog DNA, but has the DNA of other genuine animals within it. And that to me is a difference. Like, one of them is a recreation of what was a living animal. The other is an invention created from other things to serve a purpose. You can't say that just because they both have a little bit of frog in them, they're exactly the same. They're not. And it's just used as an easy crutch, I feel, by the pro-hybrid camp to be like, oh, well, they're all hybrids. Well, they're not, though. That's like saying you're a hybrid of mum and dad, essentially.
Yeah, pretty much. I never I never took that statement seriously. I was just like, yeah, I guess, but not really the same thing, are they?
Yeah, but I feel like that's now... I've seen a lot of people who are defending the mutant, saying, oh, well, mutations happen naturally. Like, it can happen naturally, biologically. Like, that's how evolution works. Yes, because evolution creates mutated combinations of Rancor and Xenomorph. That's how evolution works, right there,
Rancor,
ladies and gentlemen.
Xenomorph Muto. I mean, the only real saving grace for me for Rebirth will be I don't have any faith in the story. It's down in the dumps in the expectations for me, so I can't really be disappointed in this sense.
It's already disappointed.
But the only saving grace for me is because Gareth Edwards is directing. He'll make a very good visual experience along with audio as well, because Godzilla 2014 and Star Wars Rogue One. So I feel like the movie will excel in that aspect, but the story is down in the dumps. It's at the bottom of Coruscant. So I don't think the story is going to be redeemed at all.
And I mean, obviously at this point, we don't know that much about Rebirth. It could just be that the trailer is really crap at showing off what a great film it is. That there is that possibility.
We did think that about the Minecraft movie, though.
We can only go off Jurassic World and Fallen Kingdom and to a lesser extent 65, because that flipping heck. This is actually Earth 65 million years ago, but our animals that we're actually presenting here are completely inaccurate to anything. And again, are just basically movie monsters. But let's not get dragged into discussing yet another film.
I mean, I think with Rebirth, we just have to wait and see, really. We only have about, 3 shots of the mutant to go off of? And that's it. We have no backstory behind it. We have no context of why it's there. I think it's too early to judge it at the moment.
I would agree with you there.
It could be characterized in a really good way. It could be the best film since Jurassic World. You never know. It's not a hard goal.
This is about to say that's a very low bar to jump over. I think
All right,
even
I'll say
could
best
manage to
movie
leap
since
over that.
Jurassic Park 3. It could very well be that, but it could be also worse than Dominion somehow. So
Do you think?
you never know. We'll have to see.
I mean, obviously, this won't just be the last film they make. Do you think?
Oh, no.
Do you think mutations is going to be the next thing, like the hybrids were?
I think if it's perceived badly, then no. I think they're holding off on writing the second one at the moment because of that. I mean, Gareth is known to just kind of dip after the first movie he makes. So, I don't know. If it's perceived in a good way, then, well, from the majority, then I think they will continue with potential hybrids. Not hybrids, mutants. Same thing. But I would like to see a more imaginative way that the dinosaurs specifically act within the movies, instead of just, here's a new big bad. Look at that. Dinosaurs act the same, though. As they did 25 years ago. But yeah, I think it's just a matter of time before we really lay down our opinions.
Yeah, definitely.
We still need that second trailer.
Yeah, so interesting. We've basically turned the finger to. It's not that the dinosaurs aren't enough. It's that writers need to get better at using them, and that it's not necessarily just because they've left the horror aspects behind. You could have an action movie with dinosaurs in that's good if you just flipping use them better. And the mutants and the hybrids are being put in because they need something to provide the oomph, because they don't have it with the animals they're using anyway.
Yeah.
It seems to be
Like, this is a bit of a weird comparison, but if you've ever watched No Country for Old Men, I feel like that scene between the old man store clerk and I forget his name, the main character, the psychopath, very similar to how I'd like any altercation between a dinosaur and a human to be. Very similar between the Dilophosaurus and Nedry, to where it's just very tense. There's nothing really being happening. It's just very tense. You can feel the tension in the room because of how the psychopath is acting. Very dead-eyed, very just, unpredictable. It's unpredictability that makes the dinosaurs scary. So you don't know really what they're going to do. They don't have any context to why they're doing it. They're just acting upon instinct, which they don't do anymore. So it's a bit of a weird comparison, but it's just what sprung to mind, because I feel like that would be a good representation of, how two humans would interact in a very intense way. But it gives that same feeling of that Dilophosaurus scene. So all in all, I feel like more scenes should be like that Dilophosaurus scene. Not enough people point to it enough. A lot of people just point to the T-Rex scene, but I feel like a more effective scene for scariness is the Dilophosaurus one. I feel like that one scared more kids than the actual T-Rex. Me included.
The one last thing I wanted to talk about, moving away basically from the topic of this discussion, or is related. Obviously, we both play Jurassic World, we both play The Isle. In terms of like the hybrids / the mutants in any future Jurassic World Evolution 3, do you think, because obviously they will be there, the Indominus and the Indoraptor are part of the canon, they will probably be in Jurassic World Evolution 3. Do you think, and obviously the Isle has the endocrines? Is that
Hyperendocrine, yeah, just strains, yeah.
Strains. So both of these dinosaur franchises have these added monstrous animals in them. Do you think that's a good thing for both the Isle and Evolution 3, or would you rather them just focus on genuine animals? Like, what in terms of video game, do you think?
I think it works better for the Isle because, with Jurassic World Evolution, it's just a builder, right? At the end of the day, all it is just a tycoon game. It doesn't really add any oomph to it apart from your park rating. Whereas with the Isle, that's the whole vision of the Isle. It's part of the vision of the Isle. It's part of the gameplay loop, even. For example, you grow your dinosaur, right? You live your life. If you live a good life, it's unclear of what their plan is yet, but, if you live a very poor life, you just start fights all the time, and you treat your dinosaur like crap, then you'll be treated as such in old age. Whereas if you take care of yourself and act smart, then again you'll be treated as such at old age, to where you'll turn into one of those strains potentially. But with Jurassic World Evolution, it's just again a boost in your park rating. That's it. I don't really see any upwards value other than that, unless there was a separate campaign for it.
Because that is one thing the Evolution fan base is pondering, is how, if this mutant is coming to JWE3, exactly how that's going to sort of implement itself into the gameplay. Because obviously everything about Rebirth doesn't seem to be something that can be easily implemented into a new Evolution game.
No.
So does this mean we're gonna deliberately have failed mutating experiments in order to get this new mutated accident? You know, a hybrid is one thing if you're doing it deliberately, but if this is an accident, why would you recreate an accident for your park?
In an ideal world, we'd think that Frontier would come up with a new feature to where
yes,
it's similar to the liability feature. Or is it viability?
Viability, yeah.
Viability. To where the lower the percentage is, the more messed up your dinosaur may look, instead of just dying. Of course, if it's low enough, it probably will just die. But, in an ideal world, they'd make different models for each dinosaur to where it would just look more gradually messed up. But likelihood is that they'll just do the classic Frontier thing and say, I don't know what to do with this thing. Let's just throw it in the hatchery. And just give it different skins and give it maybe a chaos theory. But if they do give it a chaos theory, that would be neat. With the dinosaurs, it would just be skins. That's it. Different variants of those dinosaurs. I'm in the mindset of them adding it to Jurassic World Evolution 2 at the moment, but because we have no idea of what Jurassic World Evolution 3 is going to entail.
Yes, I'm not even convinced that the Rebirth movie stuff will be anything more than just like an animal pack, personally, because of how there's very little else from Rebirth, from the premise of the movie at least, that you could actually put in to the game.
Not really. We already have Utah Raptors in Jurassic World Evolution 2, which I expect they're probably going to add back into Jurassic World Evolution 3 as DLC, even though people have already paid for them. And that's not a new thing either. They did that with Jurassic World Evolution and Jurassic World Evolution 2, which people still failed to just acknowledge for some reason. But yeah, I don't see it being anything more realistically than just something else in the hatchery. Maybe something you can only access in sandbox mode. I don't know. Because I can't imagine it being accessed in challenge mode for ratings, because that wouldn't make any sense. But I don't know. Frontier is probably scratching their heads as well. They probably don't know what the hell they're doing.
I think this has been an interesting discussion. Let me know, folks, down in the comments, whether you agree with some of what we said here. What is your thoughts on this question? Why are dinosaurs not necessarily enough from the position of Universal? What do you think is the defining cause? Whether it's something we've mentioned, such as the rise of Marvel movies or action films or Godzilla, or is it bad writing is the fault, and it's actually directors and stuff that need to get better? Let me know down in the comments. If you're pro hybrid or pro mutant, I would love to hear from you as well. Just have a fair discussion in the comments. Don't hate on each other, because I'm not here to hate on either concept either. I have my thoughts, obviously, but if you like the hybrids, explain why. Explain if you think why it's a positive thing for the franchise. Don't also forget to like the video and subscribe while you are there. I want to thank Lima for taking part in this discussion with me as the Godzilla fanboy in the room.
My pleasure. Thanks for having me.
No, you're welcome. And until the next time, folks, stay safe and goodbye.
Bye-bye.